Welcome to Coach's Corner Show, everybody. Thanks for watching. I am your host, Coach Tripp, Paul Tripoli, where I spent 20 years back in the arena coaching again. I got a special show for everybody today. I want to introduce everybody, but I want to warn you, this might be the longest show that I've ever done in my life, but it might be the best one. So no pressure on you guys. All right, to the upper corner here to my left, Preston Gothard. Preston, thanks for joining again the show. We did it a few months ago.
Yeah, we had a good time then. I think we'll top it this time, Trip.
Oh, my God. Blow me. Johnny Lombardo, a good friend of mine. We're all walk-ons. So this is the 1980 Alabama football walk-on show. And we were the original four there hanging out together, grinding, getting our ass beat. Johnny, thanks for joining, buddy.
This is great.
Man, and in the corner, David Muncher, a good friend of ours, hung out, and we're going to go over everybody's history. Munch, thanks for joining.
Hey, good to see you, Trip. Good to see you also, Preston and Johnny.
God, it's good to see everybody. Holy cow, we spent so many good years together back then. But let's start it from the beginning. Preston, just tell everybody where you're from, what high school you went to, and we'll take it from there and go around the horn.
Real repetitive from a couple of weeks, but and I'll be short. Montgomery, Alabama is where I grew up. Went to school down at Lowndes Academy, a little private school back when it was AISAs, APSA. Very small. That's exactly why I was a walk-on. When you graduate with 33 kids. The last football game I played my senior year, we dressed out 14. We brought two guys up from the JV team just to have more players than coaches on the sideline. So, it was quite a journey, but got to Alabama. And, of course, with you guys, and I was looking at the pictures, I think it's like we were was there 36 of us at Mary Burke at that time? I mean, I'm getting a little ahead, but we were some of the original amigos up there at Mary Burke. So, boy,
yeah, we stayed all 4 years or 5 years. David, let everybody know where you grew up, your high school.
I grew up in a little small town just north of about an hour north of Tuscaloosa, a place called Empire, Alabama. It was a little small community. It really wasn't incorporated, not a big town, but small area, very country. But I went to Dora High School. Dora was a medium-sized school here in the state of Alabama during that period of time, and went to Dora there, and that was in Walker County. Lived here all my life, grew up here. And even moved back here. I actually, live in Jasper, Alabama now, which is just a little ways from Empire. But I'm like Preston. We're out in the woods, and we used to call it out in the sticks is where I'm from. But it's a great little community, great place to grow up in. A little rough for some people's flavor, but I love it and still enjoy it, and proud to be from here.
Johnny, tell everybody where you're from, where you went to high school.
I am originally from Birmingham, Alabama. I went to Inslee High School, which is on the west side of Birmingham. But most people know about Birmingham. That's where the Iron Bowl was played all those years. That Legion Field was my home field, actually, in high school.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
My gosh. All right, so we got two from fairly big cities, two Italians from Birmingham, I'm from Syracuse, and then two rednecks from the Hicks, the small town. You didn't get a whole lot of people looking at you. I didn't get a whole lot of people. They did look at me, but they looked the other way. So we all walked on. All right, So let's talk about that journey. I've told it on my show, so I don't want to hear about me, but man, August 1980. Still, I look in the newspapers today, and it has record high temperatures from 1980. I got off the plane. I thought I was 8 miles from the sun, for crying out loud. Oh, my God. Guys, what do you remember about that first summer? And let's talk some stories about especially when the varsity came out after winning back-to-back national titles. Preston, go ahead.
Well, when I first got there, it was the biggest experience that I remember. It was hot, but I worked in my father's construction company, and I was out in it, so heat wasn't a big deal. But I remember the funniest thing when I went to got there. We were second-class citizens, the walk-ons were, and I was in line and watched Caruth and Joey and all that bunch get all their fine linens and their new shiny stuff. And I was second or third in the walk-on line to get there and got to meet Willie Meadows for the first time.
Willie Meadows
was quite the treat. And he was throwing stuff in a baskets. I went in there to put my pants on. And you remember how they had all the names on the back? Like ours had been worn forever. I got a pair of pants that the last name on it was Buddy Brown. Buddy Brown was 5'10", 290. Had about a 50-inch waist, and his legs wasn't but about 18 inches long. And I put that thing on. I looked like a little sixth grader just coming out for junior high football. It was girthy. And I went back trying to get more pads, and what happened there, get more pants. I remember going out trying to practice, and Coach Moore came up because Coach Moore had worked his butt off trying to get me a scholarship, but he couldn't sell me to Bryant for no reason. And he goes, "Where did you get that uniform?" I said, "Some old white gave me that." So after practice, this true, Mal came in there, and him and Willie Meadows got in a knockdown drag out over the shit I had wearing. Well, all I remember is Mal was standing there, and I couldn't see, and all of a sudden a pair of pants just come flying out.
Oh my God, Willie Meadows was
that was my first experience of football at Alabama. I said, "God Almighty, I'm in for a long time over here."
God, I remember getting those socks from that basket and didn't have any elastic in them. No elastic in the socks. I go back to Willie. There's no elastic in the socks. I just do what you can, Yank. Just go on. Don't be bothering me.
How about a jock strap you used to get that looked like you could put 3 people in, and you used to have to tie them up on the side, put a knot in them.
Everything was hand-me-downs. Everything was all the equipment for the walk-ons were hand-me-downs. Munch, go ahead.
I don't even know if it was hand-me-downs. I think they found the crap in the corner, really.
Well, that's funny. Those are all true stories too, and we all suffered through some of that. But when we got down there in that fall 1980, you're right. The heat was oppressive. It was severe temperatures. I think it was one time so many days that set a record for most days over 100 degrees. But I remember showing up down there at Mary Burke, where we all went into to stay during the up until school started. Once school started, we had to move out of there because the students were coming in.
Right.
And that was a girls' dorm. And so we were standing in that girls' dorm, and at first it was just a few of us for the first few days while the freshmen come in, and for orientation we had like 2 or 3 days, 3 or 4 days before the varsity showed up. And then when the varsity showed up, the returning players that were also again walk-ons, they actually just moved in with us, and we stayed over there. But I'm a year older than you guys. I actually graduated high school in 1979. You guys graduated in 1980, and I went to Alabama a year after attending college. My first year playing baseball at a school, but I got during baseball I met Darrell White, and of course his dad, Coach Shorty White, was the running back coach at Alabama. And I got to be friends with Darrell, and of course Darrell was a walk-on at the University of Alabama. He didn't get a scholarship there at first,
right?
So he went in, and his dad would always chide me at the ball games and things about did I really want to play baseball or does I want to play football? And he said, if you ever want to come down, let me know, and I'll talk with Coach Bryant. And lo and behold, I did miss football so much. I actually called and talked to him, and he went to Coach Bryant, and that's how I came in with you guys in that class as the walk-ons. And back then you could walk on. You couldn't just walk on. You had to be invited as a walk-on. But then once school started, they allowed other students to come try out, and they would keep 20 of those guys that would actually help fill out the the practice squads and the scout teams. Because you're right. Once we went in there, you go in and get your dressing room, go get your locker, and the lockers, back then were just 2x4s separated by chicken wire. And the lower
there were two locker rooms. There were one for the varsity and one for the freshmen and walk-ons.
Yeah.
And I was in there with freshman walk-on locker room for like 2.5 years, man.
Hey, it was in the bottom of the Coliseum. People think, nowadays they think it was always at the practice facilities and the stadium, but it was not. It was in the bottom of the Coliseum.
Yeah.
And it had been there for years. I mean, you're right. Preston wasn't the only one. You go in there and you know how Willie Meadows was. He marked up all the practice gear with these big black markers. That marker had to be an inch wide, and he'd draw an A on it,
or an X.
The students,
X on socks.
We would take, because he was afraid we'd take the socks and take the T-shirts, and we probably would have, but you couldn't wear them because they were identified. And you go in and get your gear, and it'd be in this little chicken wire basket that they'd shove out the little hole opening between the hallway and the gear storage area, and they'd hand it to you, and you go get in the locker room, and the T-shirts would be ripped. The only thing you might have was just a ring for your neck and your arms. there was no other fabric. And then he would mark the names in the pants. And you'd have like 8 names in your pants because it had been passed down for the last 8 years. And I always tell everybody about that is, hey, our practice gear was so miserable that on game day, when you walked into the stadium and they opened up the doors, you'd walk into the locker room prior to the game and you saw all this brand new stuff hanging in your locker. It made you feel like a king there for a little bit. And I think it's all part of the psychology of Coach Bryant and
you remember
and Willie Meadows. But
when they moved some of us, we got to live at go over to Bryant Hall and live. They would 2 or 3 times a year have clothing checks. They'd come into your room and go through your crap looking and getting all the stuff you'd stolen. I had the X's all over it. And they'd come in your room and get all the stuff and take it back over.
They
2 or 3 times a year.
They'd ask us like, hey, did you get any of our stuff? And I'd say, why would we want that? I'm not wearing it in public.
I was still scared 5 years later. I didn't even take my helmet. Preston and I played in his hometown, Montgomery, in the Blue-Gray All-Star game. I was too afraid 5 years later to even keep any of that stuff. I handed it all in to Willie. Johnny, what do you remember about that first summer, man, August 80?
It was I was intimidated a little bit because when you come out of high school, even though we didn't scholarship, we were usually pretty high on the scale as an athlete at your high school. And when I got to Alabama, I thought, my God, everybody's big and fast. And it was an intimidating. I think a lot of it when I came there was more mental than it was physical.
Right.
And I thought a lot. I didn't realize that until I got there. But man, you get to the caliber of you guys. I mean, everybody was good. That's why everybody was good.
You're right, Johnny. It was a much bigger jump. Preston and I, we were lucky enough to play in the pros, but it's
that's a whole nother jump too. Once you there, it's a whole nother jump. But I mean, everybody, that's what, if you can overcome it mentally, you can make it. That's what we did. I think as walk-ons, what we did, we overcame it,
Yeah. That's a good point. That's a good transition into what we're going to talk about right now. What walk-ons wear. Okay. Some guys, let's talk about this a little bit. I'll break after this first page, and then I want to get your guys' opinion on this. Most college football walk-ons, they live and toil in the shadows. They wear like a dark under cloak, not a cloak of secrecy really, but a cloak of obscurity. Rarely seen or heard from. They struggle silently trying to overcome obstacles that scholarship players don't encounter. But deep down, though, the walk-ons wear a sense of pride, resilience, and courage to beat the odds. A couple of years ago, there was one such walk-on, Georgia quarterback Stetson Bennett, right? 2-time national champ. Just a few years ago, he was fighting to keep his dream alive. And, recruiting's not an exact science. One college coach actually described walk-ons as they're a mistake everyone made. Nobody offered them a scholarship. No coach believes he can play in a game. So walk-ons have to be resilient. They wear like a Teflon coat. 85 players are on scholarship and roughly another 30 walk-ons. There's only 22 starters. That means that 25% of scholarship guys are on fourth string. All of us right here. And I would shout out to all the walk-ons all across the country in every sport. When a walk-on steps on a facility, he's fifth or sixth string, just like Stetson Bennett was. And, I walked on, right? We all walked on after national title years. The first time the varsity came out there in scrimmage, I went, holy shit, what am I doing here? It was such a big jump. But, like I said, we toiled practices. Preston, you were the first one to get a scholarship and the first one to play. I went over 2.5 years, 200 practices, 500 workouts before I slipped on that crimson jersey for the first time. Before that day, my picture wasn't in the media guide. They mispronounced my name probably because it was spelled. It was misspelled. I was afraid to say something, we told about the Willie Meadows incidents, but, a high percentage of walk-ons never start. Guys, that's just something, I'll go into the second part here in a little bit, but man, we had the toil. I remember stories of Ken Donahue. We're going to talk about coaches a little bit. If you got a story about a coach, speak up. But Ken Donahue used to take EJ Jr. and Byron Braggs and grab all the walk-ons. Munch, you were a DB at that time before you switched to linebacker. Johnny was a DB. He'd take the walk-on DBs, and we have to go up against those All-American defensive linemen, and we couldn't juke them. Holy cow. What do you remember, Munch, about those collisions?
Hey, when they first did that, and of course, we'd always had a little inkling of what was going to come from some of the things. But, yeah, you go over and you get in this line, and the next thing you know, the varsities come out, and you got this a 2-time national championship team returning, and just about the entire defense was returning. And by the way, 10 out of the 11 were drafted and played many years in the NFL. Wow. And so these players were just, just the cream of the crop in college.
Yeah.
And they, you line up and they say, all right, we're going to snap the ball, and you just run up here and we're going to do some tackling drills. And at first you think, well, this can't be, full speed. And then next thing you know, you're getting killed. You're getting waylaid out there. And then about the second, third time that happens, you either decide you're going to leave and quit, or you're going to bow up. And of course, we want to think we bowed up and actually, stood our ground.
We did.
But it was very intimidating, as Johnny said. It was very intimidating. I remember the first scrimmage we had, and you scrimmage fairly quick in the fall because you got a game in 4 weeks,
right,
to play, and so they're going to get the team coming back, and I'm at strong safety, and my first snap in a scrimmage. Back then, the officers ran the wishbone, and so we call our defense. We go out there, and the strong safety pull comes up. It's like sort of like an outside addition to the linebacking group, and they ran an option towards me, and they snapped the ball. And the next thing you know, Billy Jackson is running all over me. I mean, that's how quick they moved. It's how fast they were. I'm like, I blinked, and the next thing I know, I'm getting ran over by the fullback. That was pretty interesting first few days of practice in the fall, going against the first team offense most of the time.
Yeah,
it was brutal. It was brutal. Gosh, let's tell some stories. Me and Dana for years would talk about whenever somebody wanted to get through the door, we'd just knock on it and say, "Let me in. My name's Lenny." Lenny Patrick got locked out of a classroom one time, and that's what he was, yelling to open up the locked door because he was Lenny Patrick and he deserved to be in and come late. Preston, tell a story about Lenny Patrick. We told a bunch of them last night, man, texting back and forth.
Lenny, the worst thing I saw with Lenny we can't talk about on here. They were popping a ball on his butt one time, but we can't go into all the details on that. Goose Tree had to do it.
Oh.
And but my favorite was our, like Jesse Bendros. Y'all remember Jesse? I mean, Jesse was like a kid, man.
Oh my goodness!
I pulled in one day to the parking lot, and there was a bunch of the brothers was in a circle around a car. I thought they had a flat tire, so I parked. And as I got out, I could hear it wasn't a flat tire. I could hear all this yelling and gnashing of teeth. And y'all may remember this incident when I tell you about it. So as I get closer, I'm hearing Horstead's over there, Lenny, and you remember Lenny's voice, how high it was, Ricky Moore, Manuel, Willard Sissom, they're all over there.
Yeah.
Please don't shoot him. Don't shoot him. Please don't shoot him. Oh, don't shoot him. What the hell are they doing? I went over there. And if y'all remember, Jesse used to date this little old gal that was on the track team. A little bitty petite black girl. Well, she's down on her hands and knees, and she's got a pistol. And she's looking under this car. Well, Jesse's under the car. And she's going, she's screaming profanity, and she's going to kill Jesse. And the group around there was trying to convince her not to shoot Jesse. Oh, well, when I saw and seen gun, I got my ass. I exited stage left. I got away from there. I said, I will read about this in the paper, I guess. So I took off. Well, evidently they got the situation diffused. And so the next day they was kind of picking at Jesse. And the second day we're practicing.
Yep. I was covering him. I remember that day.
You remember Jesse was split out all the way by 15th Street.
I covered him.
And he's looking back in at the ball, right? And you couldn't script this any better.
Yep.
A damn car came down and it backfired right out there on the street. Wow! And Jesse went, and he hit the
he was laying flat on the ground.
He was flat on the ground. Everybody went, the coaches didn't know what was going on because the players were dying. Everybody started laughing. Jesse got up like Fred Sanford. He was holding, and I forgot who it was. It might have been Horstead, and one of them ran over to him, and they were like checking him for a bullet hole.
I asked him, "What's wrong?" He said, "My girlfriend's mad at me."
I was hoping one of y'all remember that story, man. It was a classic.
She was really mad at him.
Lenny, when we first came down there, Lenny didn't have a car. So Lenny couldn't get around without bumming rides from everybody. And so one weekend he wanted to go home, and he wasn't supposed to go home. He was supposed to be in training for his had a hamstring, right? And Lenny's always had a hamstring problem. He didn't want to practice. And so he asked me, was I going home? Because he lived in Jasper, and I was heading this direction. And so I took him home. And the next Monday, we come into practice, and they have the big meeting with Coach Bryant. And the manager walks in and says, Coach Bryant needs to see David Muncher in his office. And I'm thinking, what in the world? Coach Bryant, he don't even know who I am. I mean, he don't even know my name. And so I get up, and I'm all nervous, and they escort me down to his office right before the big meeting. And I walk in, he says, I just want to know, did you take Lenny Patrick home this weekend? I said, yes, sir. I did. And he said, the rule is if you're injured, you can't go home on Sunday. You got to get treatment. You got to go to to the treatment place to get treatment. And I said, well, yes, sir. I know that, but I wasn't injured. So I was going to go home just for a day or so and come back. And Lenny wanted to ride. So I just gave him a ride. And Coach Bryant let me go. Of course, Lenny comes in, he gets in trouble as many times Lenny got in trouble. But the thing about it was, when I took Lenny home, he made me stop over in Northport, and he bought him a couple of bottles of Boone's Farm wine. And as we was driving to Jasper for that hour drive, he was drinking that Boone's Farm and throwing the bottles out the window.
Coach Bryant, he didn't remember names too good. It was hard to, because there was 140 guys out there, and I didn't know. He didn't know names, and I remember my dad one time came to practice for a week. He came down for a week, and Coach Bryant saw him walking across the practice field. So Coach Bryant got out of his golf cart and walked the whole way across the practice field with my father. Well, afterwards, I asked my dad, I said, well, I saw you walking with Coach Bryant. What did he have to say to you? Now, Coach Bryant, he was 6'4". He was a big man. He was huge. My dad's 5'7", little Italian guy. And, with an Italian northern dialect. And Coach Bryant had the most southern drawl, raspy voice you could ever imagine. So I was asking him how that conversation went. My father says, I didn't understand one word he said. The only sentence I heard him say was, "Oh, you got a good boy there, Mr. Tripoli." That's the only thing that's the only thing he could understand the whole way. But gosh, man, was there any one-on-one meetings with Coach Bryant? I've told my story of one-on-one meetings, but he was transformative in my one-on-one meeting. Preston, Munch, Johnny, you got any stories about Coach Bryant?
What happened to Johnny?
Johnny, you there? You there, buddy? We got you. We're back.
Yeah, let Johnny.
We got him. Yeah, Johnny, we're telling Coach Bryant stories, one-on-one stories with Coach Bryant. I've told my story. You got a story with Coach Bryant, or maybe any other coaches? Coach Donahue. We're going to talk about Coach Donahue, Coach Kroom, Coach Dubose.
Yeah, I went and spoke with him actually about Willie Meadows when our clothes were falling off of us at practice.
Boy, that got you somewhere.
It bothered me so bad that we couldn't even hardly run because our pants were falling down all the time. So Coach Bryant would always say, if you have something, come see me. And so I went up there and I met with Coach Bryant. And when I walked in the office, the couch he had across from his desk there, it sat real low, almost on the ground. So I was when you sat down, you're almost on the floor, and he's looking down at you. And I just reminded him what he had told us as players when he'd come and talk to us. If you have any issues, he said, he said, I'm your parent away from home. You remember him telling us that in those meetings?
Yeah.
Everything we did, he said, he told us when we came that the whole student body would be looking at us and they would watch us, and if,
right.
And they did, they made sure that we didn't do anything wrong. They'd always tell on us, you know what I'm saying? But I remember after wearing those clothes for so long and our socks around our ankles and just the helmets and just everything, I went and asked Coach Bryant. I said, Coach Bryant, this is what you said to us. And I just told him what was going on. And the next day, we all had brand new stuff. That was the next day.
Oh, my gosh. Did we really?
Yeah.
Oh, God, I thought he'd lay into you.
Yeah.
Man.
And
I think we took up an offering for Johnny.
Oh my gosh. Well, who was it? Hey, who are the coaches in your corner, man? And, because as walk-ons, we went and never played. We all played. We all got in games. Who was your guy? I mean, I have, Coach Bryant obviously was for all of us. But Lewis Campbell was not for us. So I had to have Kent Johnston and Murray Legg and Al Miller. Those coaches stood up for me somehow, because I don't know. You got to have a coach in your corner. Preston, who was your?
Well, Mal Moore. Mal Moore was a special friend, and I told the story when he was very close to my family. He's real close to me. There's not enough time about the recruiting flubbers with me and Coach Moore. I think it bothered Coach Moore, and he came and saw me and brought Coach Stallings when we were playing them in Phoenix, Arizona. We went out there, and it was a knock on the door, and Coach, my trainer said, "You got 2 visitors." I said, "I don't know anybody over here." So I go out. Coach Moore was the offensive coordinator there, and he, hugged me and said, "Man, I'm proud of you." Said, "I wanted you to meet Coach Stallings." Well, Coach Stallings was the head coach of the Cardinals, and they took out of their time to come down and see me. But I was going to, we're going to have some fun with all this, but I wanted to talk about Jack Rutledge a minute. Y'all remember Jack, Happy Jack, we called him. He wore his hat. His hat was way up on top of his head the whole time. He was the special teams coach, and he had a stopwatch. Y'all remember, he always had a stopwatch. And again, Johnny remembered one thing. Y'all may remember this story. And you remember he was the lightning Nazi. He was in charge of thunderstorm activity and how long we stayed on the field. We're out there one day, it's hot, and it's one of them scrimmages where the first team's gone in, and you remember we used to take our helmets and shoulder pads and stuff and put them on and then scrimmage till Coach Bryant got tired of watching us. Well, it's black in Centerville. It's just a wall of black, and this storm is coming. Lightning. Jack, he's got this formula of some kind. He hits the stopwatch, and then you hear the thunder. He stops the stopwatch, and he looks. And, everybody had to look at Coach Bryant, all the coaches. Coach, 15 miles away. We're good, Coach. We got about 15 miles. Okay, so Coach, we got about 12. We got about 10. We got about 8 miles, Coach. Well, remember Coach Bryant used to park his golf cart right where the steps were.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, Coach Bryant's sitting in a metal tower during a thunderstorm. Jack had just given the report that the damn thing's 8 miles away. Well, the sun's shining out there. He ain't got it out of his mouth good, and it had flooded before we went out there. A bolt of lightning hit right on the other side of 15th. One of them screamers. People hit the ground, people hollering and screaming, and everybody looked in the tower. There ain't nobody in the tower. The damn golf cart is throwing a rooster tail up. It's halfway to Coleman Coliseum. Coach Bryant had to have jumped out of that damn tower to get in that thing. You know what? And the coaches didn't say nothing. Everybody just starts running to Coleman Coliseum. We just took off. And,
oh, my gosh.
But Jack, on top of everything else, he was the lightning Nazi for the team. So, yeah.
Coach Donahue was something else, wasn't he, man? He was a boxer in the Navy, and he ran with his defensive linemen all the time.
Yep.
And then when we had a lot of fights in practice, Coach Bryant took from the tower, "Hey, manager, get the gloves." And everybody's like, "What Coach Bryant say? Get the gloves?" Right? And so the manager come back with 2 15-ounce boxing gloves, and Larry Roberts and Brent Sewell were the last ones to get into battle that day. We were having a lot of fights. So he remember him gathering us up in a ring and taking their helmet and shoulder pads off and just let those guys go at it till they knocked each other out after about 5 rounds. Holy cow!
That was a rough fight. It
was rough for Larry Roberts.
Yeah, Larry was doing pretty good till he got tired.
Yeah, Brett just covered up, and it was just doink, boom. Good night, nurse.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, but you mentioned coaches. We all had a bunch of coaches. Coach White. He left after my freshman year, so that guy that knew me there, he was gone, and so I was left on my own. And Coach Rousey on the linebacker, I got where I was a little bit comfortable with him, and he was comfortable with me. So I moved from defensive back over to linebacker.
Yep.
And I was with him for a spring, and then lo and behold, he leaves, and then the fall comes around. I've got Coach Kroom, who's over from defensive end to linebacker. So I'm going from coaches to coaches. So I had, all the coaches were pretty good to us. They paid some attention, but the one who I think really gave me I got a rapport with the most there then was our offensive line coach, Coach Powell. And Coach Powell, he how he was. He had his group, and all of his offensive linemen, even today, talk about him and revere him for how good of a coach he was with those guys as not just a football player, but as a person. But he would come over to me in practice when we were getting, the offenses were wearing us out a little bit because we were doing a game plan from the opposing teams, and we were just trying to reenact best for them. And he would come over to me, and as we was calling defensive signals and things like that. He go and he say, Munch, he says, you're making us better, buddy. You're making us better. And so that little bit of communications from them guys.
Absolutely.
Because Coach Legg and Coach Poole, who were our coaches on the defensive side, they were great guys too. So I had a good rapport with most all the coaches.
Coach Poole was one of the 29 surviving Junction boys.
Coach Powell was?
Coach Powell.
With Coach Stallings and those guys.
Wow. 29. That's why he was in charge of corporal punishment. Y'all remember when a drunk athlete got, an Alabama football player couldn't get put in jail for no reason.
Nope.
And the police all they did was bring drunk, inebriated football players and give them to Coach Rutledge, who would promptly make the telephone call to D. Powell and wake him up, thinking that it would piss him off, but it would just make his night. He would just stay awake, and then he would meet the suspects out there at the practice field at 5 a.m. I saw Gary Bramblett and Castillo come back one morning after a session. They couldn't. They didn't take. They was in the clothes that he killed him in. They just went up, fell in their beds, and went to sleep. I said, there ain't enough money for me to get in trouble, brother.
No, they had a way of keeping everybody pretty straight down there because those 5 a.m. sessions out on the track were miserable.
I saw the aftermath of that. That wasn't pretty.
No, it wasn't pretty. I was the recipient, the victim of one of those. I got in trouble a little bit, but sometimes they never got to Coach Bryant, thank God, and they had their own way of taking care of things. But we kept our Brian Hall. Gosh, with Preston, you and I were lucky enough to get in Brian Hall, and I lasted about two years in Brian Hall, and then got the boot to get out of Brian Hall.
Married, yeah.
That's when I had to go. That's when I went college.
Johnny, where'd y'all live? What was those apartments y'all lived in?
Yeah, where'd we go? I moved over next to you and Johnny, David.
That was where Johnny and them were.
12th Street, 15th Street apartments.
Yeah, no. Avenue.
10th
Avenue apartments. Johnny talked me into moving in with him over there.
I thought so. I thought y'all roomed together over there.
Yep, they did. Right down. I was
over there
and
watching.
Stan Gate lived right across from us.
I remember coming over there watching a Gallagher special or something over there one night. We came over there, crashed a party or something, and went over there to y'all's place.
He was smashing watermelons. But Johnny can tell you all about that place. Go ahead, Johnny. Tell us about that 10th Avenue apartments.
It was just 10th Avenue apartments. They lived right across the hall, not the hall, but the street from us in the same apartment complex.
I remember Johnny in Tutwiler playing the piano for hours, waiting on his girlfriend to come downstairs, man. And we go over and sing. And
I learned how to play the piano just sitting there.
Johnny, we spent a lot of hours in Tutwiler, didn't we?
We did. We spent a lot of hours in Tutwiler.
Gosh. Hey, Coach Bryant, I was getting back to he didn't know names, so he'd call numbers.
Yep.
And I had a roommate. I had a roommate at Bryan Hall my first or second year. That was,
oh my God.
He was big and lazy and coming drunk and didn't go to class and just a slob, right? I didn't like him at all. And Coach Bryant, we had to do that 12-minute run, how far ever you could go. You know, with the good guys, we tried to get 2 miles in, but you couldn't make it. Try to get, 12 minutes. See how far you can go in 12 minutes. Well, after about 2 minutes, this big lineman and my roommate was like getting lapped already after like 2 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Coach Bryant said, "I would get number 69, pack his shit, go home." He was yelling. He cut my roommate, and that everybody had anxiety about running this 12-minute mile, and I was pumped up so much after that because I think the lineman went first and then us. I think I almost did a 12-minute 2 mile. I was so excited. But he was.
I didn't get that excited about running, Trip. I made just the minimum I had to do on that crap.
Hey, I did not like this roommate at all, Preston. He actually stole my clock radio my mother gave me in middle school. I saw it in the back of his. I got it out of his car. I went and woke him up, started beating the hell out of him, and the guys in Bryan Hall were coming and pulling me off of him.
You think somebody rooming with a Yankee from New York, that would be reverse roles. You'd be stealing all his crap.
Yeah, I know. That's why every time I open my mouth, my family was an Italian from New York, and yes, we were in waste management. So, and I had my other roommate that was doing something. I'm not going to say names to protect the guilty, but yeah, he had some. He was doing some unkindly things with the powder. And I was like, oh, my gosh, who are they going to blame at that? They're going to blame him or they're going to blame me for this? So I was in a precarious situation for like a couple of years in Bryan Hall. Maybe that's why they booted me out.
So Johnny and I were, since we were roommates together, and we were roommates together for 3 years down there. So we were there for a while, and we there at 10th Avenue. And we had a lot of people come in. Scott Holman came in one time. He lived across from us. And so we had a bunch of guys that would come in and move in for periods of time, but it was a popular place. And you drive by today, you look at it, you think, my God, how did you live there?
Yeah.
Hey, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Billy Brown, man, a kid from Mississippi, him and Roy Rumbley, Gerald Swan, remember Gerald? Stan Gay, Curtis and Lloyd Wofford, God rest your soul, Lloyd, Billy Getchell. There was a lot of walk-ons that came in after us that got to play at Alabama. Alabama was a decent place to walk on.
This hat I'm wearing is Bill Brown's bank first. I just went on a little hunting trip over. Well, we wasn't hunting because there wasn't nothing to hunt. Y'all remember Dirt Bell?
Bell.
When we first got there, Johnny, he was a DB.
Yep.
Dirt lives right down the road from me. So me and Dirt went over there and stayed with Bill over in, he's from Scuba, Mississippi.
Yep.
And he is the head banker at Bank First. His brother-in-law, Michael Dudley, is the head banker of the other bank. Yeah. You can't get a penny out of a bubblegum machine that ain't run through one of them two banks over there. So they got the dang monopoly on the money situation in East Mississippi. Just went to a wedding. Roy Rumbley's second daughter just got married this past Saturday in Birmingham. Willie Robb, y'all remember Willie Robb?
Willie Robb, yeah.
And he was there, and Kevin Welniak, which wasn't a walk-on. Y'all remember Kevin? And,
Fort Walton Beach boy.
Yeah, he's down in Tampa now. That sucker is got some kind of medical manufacturing company down. He's printing money, and he came up and good to say. I'd say Kevin a few times. Him and Roy do a bunch of business together, but that picture Trip you sent me of Muncher wasn't in it. I don't know where. I don't remember if Muncher had happened there.
He got hurt.
He got hurt. 11 of the 17 guys in that photograph were walk-ons in there.
Yes.
Senior
Only
program.
6 scholarship players their senior year. 6 out of 30, out of 25 or 30. Isn't that
seniors? Everybody. And then Ed Pugh wasn't in there. He was our class. He was a walk-on.
Right.
There was a couple other guys that, of course, Mike White was doing something. I talked to Mike why he wasn't in the picture. He had a math test. Terry Sanders, which he was a year behind us, but he ended up graduating with us because we were all
Right.
redshirted. He had something going on. But out of that photograph, 11 of the 17 were walk-ons.
Holy cow.
Mm-hmm.
That is something else.
Incredible picture.
We had some great teammates, man. I mean, everybody.
A lot of hair. Johnny Lombardo and David Valletto had the hair award. They had the most hair of anybody in the picture.
Yeah.
I'm Italian. I still got all my hair.
Great.
I should let it grow long just to needle you guys. My God.
Y'all remember the biggest, we thought the transition when Ray Perkins got there, how things completely changed the dynamics of, if you know, he signed that deal with Pony. Y'all remember we had those Pony shoes.
Mm-hmm.
They wasn't worth a crap, but Willie Meadows hated them. Y'all remember that?
Oh, yeah.
You couldn't get nothing out of Willie, but he couldn't give you enough Pony shoes. He was trying to get rid of them. Y'all, we had shoes running out of our ears out there.
Did.
First spring practice, y'all remember they had them pump up water machines? You know, the little pump up things that had the two little squirt things on them?
Yeah, you want to squirt water in your mouth. Yeah.
Yeah, squirt water in your mouth. You know, hell, when Bryant was there, you drank out of a horse hoof if you could find it. We didn't own a water bottle when Bryant was there.
Those Dixie cups going down the line.
Yeah. And I'm looking at and I thought they were like insect poisoners. The damn Herman had left something out there. You know, I'm like, what the hell is that? They were everywhere.
Yep.
And they're sitting there, and we've no instructions. And if people are looking at them, and we're killing each other. And if y'all remember, Perkins called timeout, and we came in, and he goes, you know how he is. Why aren't y'all drinking water? What do you mean? Why aren't we drinking water? There's water out here. And we're like, that's for us? No, that's for drink it. We drink it anytime we want it. Hell yeah. You waterlogged, buddy. It was
a whole different mindset.
Now.
Yeah.
Today, in today's football, all they do is treat these guys like racehorses. They do everything they can to take care of them. Baby them, pamper them. You know, you listen to when Saban, he would say, "Oh, we look tired, so I wanted to go into the air conditioner." If we would have had an indoor facility, they'd have turned the heat on when we went in there. You know what I mean? There was not any babying going on.
No, it was. Back then it was survival of the fittest.
Yeah. Listen, we just make it through the next day. All you got to do is make it through the day. That's all we were worried about.
People are like, I hear, we're getting better. Shit, getting better. I just wanted to make it home. To get back to the dorm. I mean, when we were getting those, we would get under Bryant, we got 2 water breaks. They lined us up, defense and offense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
250 yards from us, they had a hose pipe and they filled up them little wax cups. You remember them? In those Coca-Cola crates.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they would get us and just blow the whistle. Hey, bring that water. Well, here comes all them managers running.
Put ice in them.
By the time we get the water, there ain't that much water in the bottom of the cup. They were like, boy. And we were so fortunate to get that ounce of water. Yeah.
Hey, then we had some
and
crazy characters.
Came out with the damn popsicle.
Hey,
popsicle. That's what we need, a popsicle.
Yeah, brain freeze for a popsicle. Hey, Preston, we had some characters. We all had to work. We all had to work in the summertime. Matter of fact, all of us, I think, worked for Herman, who is the maintenance guy at Bryant-Denny Stadium.
Yeah, facility.
I've never had.
They think turning on the sprinklers, but you had to do a little bit of work because you remember somebody getting fired. Who did Herman fire? Ricky Moore?
Oh, Ricky Moore didn't make 2 days. Herman got rid of his ass, found him sleeping in the damn bathroom.
Hey, the first job, the summer I went over to work for him, first summer, it was me and Randy Edwards and John McIntosh and Rob Roberts.
Yeah.
And he gave us some manual hedge clippers. And he told us, he said, I want you to go around, I want you to cut the hedges on the fence between the practice field and Hardaway, the drive right there, the road right there.
Yeah.
And so we're out there, and about it's 100-something degrees, and we're young and everything like that. So all we have on is flip flops and a pair of gym shorts that are about 6 inches long. And so we're out there. I mean, we're wearing this stuff out, trying to get it done, and this debris is flying all over the place. And we had no idea that we were in there. We were cutting poison ivy, poison oak off that fence. And I mean, in about 3 days, we start itching, and then we start breaking out, and it looks like, I mean, we got the hives. And back then we couldn't afford any medicine or anything like that. So we'd go buy bottles of Clorox. And we were actually bathing in Clorox trying to
You and Randy Edwards did that. Yeah. Hey, Preston, the two smartest guys that got it did that. And I was like, I'm not putting Clorox on my skin and rub that stuff off, man. You're crazy. The two smartest guys. Randy's a lawyer now, and David's up in the company, man. They were scrubbing themselves.
Johnny, did you work for Herman?
I did not. I worked. They got me a job at Albertsons, right there on McFarland.
Oh, did they?
And I lasted. I'll tell you what happened. I got the job, and I don't know who it was, Coach White. Somebody got me the job over there. So I showed up at the job. You have to do the time clock. The manager of that store thought he'd be cute, and he made me run to go get the grocery carts in the parking lot. He made me run to him and run back, and I lasted 1 day. I said, I'm not doing this no more. He thought it's funny to see me run out in the parking lot, get the grocery cart, and run them back into the store.
Hey, when we worked at the stadium, we was mostly painting and cleaning, but that place was infested with pigeons. And I think Preston's got a story about the pigeons.
Yeah, killed a bunch of pigeons.
Our job, our senior year, when Tripp was working, there was 3 pressure washers Herman got. And all the walkways, the seats, everything was concrete. And so we pressure washed the whole stadium. And we were in 2-man groups. There was 6 of us running the pressure wash. Well, one would pressure wash 30 minutes, the other sleep or whatever. And so we getting around there, and all the concourses, there was just piles of this pigeon crap, mountains of it. And so been there about a week, and I told Herman, there are pigeons everywhere. We're pressure washing, they're crapping on what we're doing. I said, what about all these pigeons? And Herman said, yeah, you'll have Herman. Kill all of them. I said, do what? Kill all of them. And I got in my after workouts that night. We were living at Fontainebleau. I called home. I said, I had a 22 caliber pump up pellet gun. I went home, bought every pellet I could from Centerville back to Tuscaloosa. Whoever was pressure washing wasn't on that. You could walk up to a girder, there'd be 30 pigeons on it. As long as you didn't miss one, ploink, doink, ploink, doink. We killed pigeons till we got tired of shooting pigeons. It's toward the end, we down to the smart ones now, right? Well, the girls had come back. They getting ready for rush. The Phi Mu house, is right behind where the stadium is right there, and there's Phi Mu house.
Yeah.
We had one pigeon we couldn't get, but we were chasing that son of a gun all day trying to get him. And finally, I tipped around there. It was about 3:30 in the afternoon, and he was way out there, and I heard that pellet hit him. Doink! That rascal started flying north, and I could tell he wasn't doing good. Well, all of a sudden, he banked to the right. You couldn't script this thing any better. There was 3 girls with a table sitting there checking in girls. Mr. Pigeon, he gave it up, and here he comes like a kamikaze diver. He hit that table in the middle of that table. Everything on it went off, people screaming and hollering. And we're laughing so hard. I'm holding the gun, and they all looked up and said, and God knows it wasn't 10 minutes later. Every sheriff in town was up there. We're in the bathroom trying to hide the pellet gun. But Hoot Johnson, I told y'all this story. Hoot walked in. He walked in one morning. Him and Pierce had been playing tennis over at the tennis day. Well, Bill was wearing Hoot out. Hoot got pissed off and threw his tennis racket, and he went up on the Nautilus building. He couldn't get it. So he come over and Hoot and Herman were big buddies. We were in there getting ready to go to work. You know, we were messing with Herman. Kent walked in. Herman, I need to borrow a ladder. Why you need a ladder? My tennis racket's on top of the Nautilus Center. Herman said, how'd it get up there? I threw it up there. Herman said, well, throw your ass up there and get it. You ain't getting no ladder. He couldn't get him ladder.
Ken Johnston, that Hall of Fame NFL strength coach.
Who walked out and everybody was getting at each other. Hoot says, you ain't going to give me a ladder? He said, no, I ain't getting you no ladder. Get out of here. So at lunch, I forgot who he told somebody to take the ladder over there and get the tennis racket out and bring it to him. But, you know, great story about Herman, y'all, that taking up too much. Y'all remember when we played Penn State our senior year, we beat them 6-0.
Yep.
2 field goals.
Yep.
You remember how hot it was. We played, and we had no reason being on the ball field with them big D'Angelos they had, man. But after warm-ups, when them dudes got in their dang stance, water was just pouring out of them. It was nothing maybe at halftime, 3-0 anyway.
Yeah.
Well, it was a grievance was filed by Paterno. Paterno goes into the locker room, his locker room, to have the halftime meeting, expecting a nice, cool locker room. He gets in there. The heat had been accidentally turned on. The place was about 100. He had to have the meeting out in the causeway under the stadium. Herman had went in there and turned the damn heat on him. He sent for me after during the week, and he said, they screwed you the year before. He said, I got them back, and I put that heat on them. Herman went in there and turned the heat on them, man. Run them out of their locker room.
Oh, my God. Folks, for you all that don't know, 1983 up in Penn State, losing 27-7. We come back, Preston catches a pass in the back of the end zone. Van Tiffen, who never missed a field extra point in his whole career, 4 years, we would have beat him 28-27. Herman turned up the locker room heat on him, 6-0. It was one of my most favorite memories of Alabama shutting Penn State out because I was the captain of the defense.
Hell, that was
shut Penn State out. Yeah, and I didn't. And thanks to Herman helped us do that.
We didn't have many highlights that year, but that was one of them. 6-0.
No, another highlight with I think, and I'm going to go around the horn. I want to say probably your best accomplishment in Alabama. For me, it was voted captain by my teammates for the '84 Iron Bowl. We were big underdogs, and we beat them 17-15. So that was my biggest accomplishment. Johnny, what do you remember about getting on the field playing Bama? What was your biggest accomplishment?
Just I made a lot of friends, and I learned a lot about life at Alabama. I learned a lot about life playing that game, and I've taken it throughout my life. You know what? Since we all talk about that, you talk about walk-ons. Character is the key in what we did. We have character, and that's what we did. We have character because it takes a lot to do what we did. Right. Because we all are very good athletes, but we didn't have the right things. Things didn't work out. And, a lot of people don't make it that way. And that's just life. It gave us gave us it gave us a boost. And plus another thing I'm very thankful for, I've got children, you guys have children, Coach Bryant left us a legacy. Our children get scholarships. And that's one thing I look back and I go, that's a great thing. Not everybody got to get that. And I'm very, very thankful for that. I've made a lot of friends for life. It's like a life thing. And it's just the accomplishment. I didn't go pro. I went to work just like David did. We went to work, and that's what I've done. I've been working the whole life, but I'm very, very, very thankful to have met men like you guys, because it's made a complete difference in my life. I promise you, complete. It's one of the, it's just a great thing
great life lesson, Coach Brian had.
Great life lesson. He did what he said. It's one thing, he did what he said. And that's what you do. He was a man's man. There ain't no doubt about it. He made sure he wanted us to grow up and be somebody. He really did. He didn't mess around with it. If you didn't obey him, you were out the door. That's how he worked. And that's a life lesson.
Right. What'd you learn?
Well, hey, look, y'all know, a few of y'all know my story, but obviously I didn't get to finish what I started down there, because Coach Perkins' first spring, when he came in as the head coach, and after Coach Bryant's passing, I messed my knee up, tore my knee up during the spring of that year, and of course the surgery that didn't go that well, and so later that fall, when we came back that fall, I went out there and tried to play, which would have been my last year. I couldn't be redshirted because of my baseball year I'd already played, and so when Coach Goostrey came and told me, he said, "Hey, Munch, we're about to go in pads, but I can't let you go in pads because your knee's just not holding up." I was having it drained every day after practice, which was always pretty rough. Yeah. And he said, "So I need you to go see Coach Perkins." And so I went up and see Coach Perkins, and Coach Perkins, was very gracious, and he talked to me a little bit, and he says, "Now, Munch," he says, "I know this is your last year, and I know," he says, "but if you can't practice, Munch, you can't play." And he said, "So I want to tell you right now, I'll let you do whatever you want to do. You can come to practice every day. You can do what you can do. We're not going to ever put you in pads because of your knee. You can help Coach Miller in the weight room," which I did. You can always be around the program, but he said, "What I'd rather see you do is I'd really see you gear up and go get you a degree." Mm-hmm. And so I went back and added several more courses, a couple more courses to my fall schedule. And in between that, loading that schedule up, and in the spring of the next year, loading that up, I graduated the following May. And always, I don't believe anything happens by accident. So my knee injury that I had, why it was heartbreaking, and one of the most difficult things to know, going back to the locker room after having a conversation with Coach Perkins, that my playing days were over, and Coach Miller coming and talking to me. Even Willie Meadows came and talked to me, which was pretty interesting that he would come in there and talk to me when they'd all heard that I wasn't going to be able to play. But going to get my degree from the university, and then still being able to be part of the program, but it allowed me to really concentrate on what's really propelled me to my success after school. Y'all know what I do, and the work I do, and who I work for, and the success I've been able to do. And I attribute that all to the lessons learned through Coach Bryant and that staff down there about persevering when times get tough get going. Yep. And that was my motto. And so my success is for everything I do today, I relate back to those types of days of hard work. Right. And I think all you guys would agree to that there. That's one of our bigger legacies from playing it.
Absolutely. Work ethic. Coach Brian say there's no substitute for guts and working hard, man. That's the same thing with coaching. I've been really lucky and blessed coaching in my career, winning all the winning seasons that I've had. And, people ask what it is. There's no magic bullet. There's no pill you take. There's no secret. There's nothing. It's just hard work. You got to outwork the other team and the other players and the other employees or your competition. Preston, what do you remember most, your fond memories?
I think I was a minority in the building. I was so excited to see Ray Perkins get there because I'd have never played a snap if it hadn't have been. Coach Bryant just wasn't going to give me a shot. And I knew I was better than that most everybody was in front of me, but I just wasn't going to get the shot.
Right.
Perkins got there kind of he had his problems, but it leveled the playing field up a lot. And I was able, we kept Steve Hale I hated Steve Hale when he was the outside linebacker coach. I couldn't stand Steve Hale. But he became our coach. He got moved to tight end coach. And I'll never forget the first meeting we had that spring. We met on the second floor of Bryant Hall up there for the first practice. And he told us flat out, as I don't want to be a tight end coach, but Ray's making me do it. He was pissed off. But my goal in life as a kid was Keith Jackson and Frank Broyles calling football games.
Yep.
My whole life, I said, if I want to hear Keith Jackson say my name, wouldn't that be the coolest thing in the world? I was a little boy, just Keith Jackson.
Yeah.
Well, I remember my junior year, I worked up and got to be starting. But we hadn't played a television game since I'd been starting. If y'all remember, we played LSU down there in '83, and it was a night game, like we always played them at night. And it was a hurricane or something over in Texas that got called off, and it was the game Keith Jackson and Frank Broyles were supposed to do. Well, they moved them to our game, and then they moved the kickoff back to 11 o'clock. Mm-hmm. And we didn't find out till like Friday that the game had been changed. And I was like, and when I found out Keith Jackson was going to be, I called everybody I knew in Tuscaloosa. You remember them days you had to have old VHS recording machine. I said, y'all got to record this thing. And it was the second series, second play, they called a pass play that I was the number one read. And fortunately enough, Walter threw the ball. And as that ball's coming to me, and I'm fixing to catch it, I'm thinking, I ain't thinking about but one thing. This is crazy. I'm like, Keith Jackson's fixing to say my damn name. He's saying I dropped it or I caught it. And I caught the ball, and that's all I could think of. Going back to the huddle, I've got all the people back home, everybody, they're going to hear.
That's good.
Man, I couldn't wait to get back to Tuscaloosa and get that dang. I went. Of course, it was the next day I got to watch it. But oh
my God! Hey Preston, I know what you're talking about because Lindsey Nelson. When I started my first game in my junior year against Boston College, Lindsey Nelson, because he did the Notre Dame replay games when you're a kid, on Sundays. Mm-hmm. And Lindsey Nelson was calling that game that I was starting at. I thought that was great. All right, folks. This is what we're going to continue on with walk-ons. Walk-ons soon realize that scholarship players get 3 to 4 opportunities before a walk-on gets his first. And I quickly realized that having a tough skin and keeping your confidence is essential to surviving. When I see stories like Stetson Bennett, it strikes a chord with all of us, I'm sure. I find myself saying, I know what he's going through. I found the same challenges. There comes a time in a walk-on's career where a eureka moment actually happens. It's a psychological turning point. For me, it was when I knocked All-American running back Major Ogilvy backwards. But for Stetson and for you guys, I'm sure there was some similar instances. Spring practice was another such opportunity for walk-ons and scholarship backups to show what they can do. Resilience and mental courage, which Johnny mentioned, that helps you wait your turn. Patience is hard, but it's also a virtue. Read Kerry Good's book if you want to get really understanding what patience can do for you, or even Bobby Bowden's book on the chapter on patience in his book, The Wisdom of Faith. But my fathers used to say you got to have intestinal fortitude. Coach Brian said there was a big difference between willing to and wanting to. Former Oklahoma a walk-on running back Dominique Whaley said, "I decided I was going to make the team no matter what, no ifs, and or buts." Folks, before a walk-on can even start, he has to make the team. That's the whole job, is to make the team and to actually dress for games. Dominique Whaley, Stetson Bennett, walk-ons must rely on themselves. I think Sugar Ray Robinson, who said, to be a champion, you must believe in yourself when nobody else will. You have to overcome your own mistakes because you don't get many chances. Yes, I concur. Fortune favors the brave. And I believe every walk-on out there was brave. I just want to mention Kerry Good because he was inducted in the Sports Hall of Fame last month, and what a guy he is, what a teammate he was. But like David got hurt your knee. Surgery wasn't like it is now. Back then, you got hurt really bad, you were done. And we were lucky. We were lucky to get some. Preston, you and I almost died on the football field. I got a collapsed lung in Canada and played the rest of the game with a collapsed lung. I don't know why they didn't take me out. But Preston, you almost died in that collision on the practice field that Coach Bryant was really concerned about. So it's a brutal game. You have to make sacrifices. And I just want to ask a couple more questions. Preston, if you had the NIL deal now, what would it be? Beer and Deer? What company?
Remington. I'd have done something with the outdoors. I
Yeah.
don't know exactly.
Hunting and fishing, right?
Yeah, it would have been something. I'd have tried something there, and because I got more pub doing outdoor stuff right up in Tuscaloosa than I probably did anything. But hey, talking about your walk-on thing, just real quick, I don't know if I've got more respect for anybody, as much respect as I got for a guy, Ed Tuck. All you guys, we all know Ed. Ed, I've never seen a person go about daily that Ed Tuck did. Had no prayer in hell to even sniff the field.
Yeah.
Anyway, he was playing wide receiver, a little slow white boy. But that cat put up with more stuff than anybody that I know of. Not 1 ounce of the word I'm looking for.
Complaining, whining, bitching.
He was out there every day grinding, and I mean, he was grinding like he was in the Super Bowl.
Right.
And he put his heart and soul in it. And I think I found this out. They did letter Ed his senior year, didn't he? I want to say that. And I haven't laid eyes on Ed since we've left.
Yeah, Ed and I were roommates on road games.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and so, he lettered.
But Ed Tuck just, there were times you just wanted to tell Ed, you might want to consider doing, this is, but for somebody that if you want to put the epitome of what a walk-on had to go through and what perseverance and sticking with it when that dude, I mean, I got to take my hat off to Ed.
Yeah. J.J. Watt, one of my favorite. J.J. Watt, one of my favorite all-time walk-ons. Oklahoma quarterback.
Who you got, Lombardo?
The person who sticks out to me most of all when I got there as a freshman is Amos Jones.
Amos, yeah.
He did all the. I mean, they just, Amos was there. I mean, he was like Ed Tuck. I mean,
he was like Ed Tuck before Ed Tuck got there.
That's right. And I mean, he was just 100 mile. He loved the game. He was all, and you knew that they wouldn't get, he wasn't ever going to get a chance. You know what I'm saying? They always kept him, and he did a lot of things. And then our senior year, he became an assistant type to the coaching staff. And you can see the history now of what he's done. I mean,
well, he's toting 3 or 4 Super Bowl rings now.
Sure is.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was just up for a coordinator job or some big job somewhere not long ago. I saw a thing, and Now, I knew there for a while. He went everywhere with Bruce Arians.
He sure did.
He left with Bruce and went to Temple, and he everywhere Bruce kept him around with him, and he's paid his dues.
Yep. Yeah, he's at Pittsburgh, and he was at Indianapolis. He was at Tampa.
He was out at the Cardinals. He was with Phoenix when Arians was out there.
You know, he definitely came through a hard time when he played at Alabama. They had no doubt about it. I mean, they gave him hell a lot of times off the field. I mean, just, you know what I'm saying? Just poking at him all the time. And I look and I go, boy, you talking about somebody that has some fortitude? That boy has 40, you know what I'm saying? Oh. He's got a lot of character.
Y'all remember Willie Robb? Willie Robb was a wide receiver for Virginia. Willie would come to practice about twice a month. And nobody ever knew he wasn't there. And Amos would be holding the cards up. Willie Robb, now you got to go over here. Willie Robb ain't been to practice in a week. He's hiding for Willie. And Coach, he's over there holding for the kickers. Oh, give me somebody else. So we was always having to cover for Willie because he was there. And Amos was always – Willie was his go-to guy. But Willie was never at practice. He was always – we were laughing about that at the wedding. He was at the wedding the other day, and we was talking about him and Amos.
God. Well, guys, man, we can go on forever. Thanks so much for joining the show. Thanks for the stories. Thanks for you guys being friends, all of us. Once a friend, always a friend. And it was great seeing you guys. I wish we could do more like we got together at Al Miller's reunion a few weeks ago. We need to do that more. I think Danny Smith has opportunity for some Alabama football lettermen to get together once a year. I think that's something that Alabama always takes care of their players. Not every school does it, but we're really blessed, guys, to have each other and have the coaches and have the experiences that we had. I love all you guys.
Here.
Hey, same thing. I love all y'all, respect every bit of all y'all do, and just feel blessed that I was actually get to know you guys when we were all younger.
Yeah.
And but even today, still have these communications and step right back into where we were, 40 years ago.
Yeah. Anybody going to Wisconsin? I'll be there.
Yeah.
You gonna be there?
Me and Johnny aren't.
I'm not.
All right. Well, I'll be in touch with you before we go.
Yeah.
And, we're gonna be out there. We're gonna get out there on Thursday.
Are you?
Yeah, we are too. Yeah.
All right. Good. We'll all right. Have fun. Send pictures. We'll Johnny, catch you a game in Tuscaloosa maybe this year. We'll see you.
Johnny Munch, good to see y'all.
Good to see y'all.
You.
Bye, buddy.
See you guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye. Wow. That was awesome. Stay tuned for these great messages from these sponsors. Without them, it just wouldn't be possible. Thanks for watching this show. Have a great sports weekend, everybody. So long.
That's you trying to fix the plumbing yourself to save a few bucks. Doing things yourself doesn't always end well. The same goes for insurance. That's why Auto Owners works with local independent agents who tailor coverage to meet your needs and offer discounts for life, home, car, and business insurance. Because sometimes you need a professional to get the job done right. That's simple human sense.
There's a reason why Hill Kelly in Pensacola is the #1 selling Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram dealer between Jacksonville and New Orleans. While other dealers have taken advantage of a competitive market with higher prices, Hill Kelly has discounted prices to the lowest of the year. And Hill Kelly in Pensacola won't surprise you with excessive charges beyond the selling price. Come see why people from Milton, Pace, Foley, Bay Minette, Daphne, Gulf Shores, Mobile, and beyond are driving to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to buy their next new Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram. At Hill Kelly, the bottom line price and your satisfaction are what really matter. So before you sign, check the bottom line and make the trip to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to see what true local ownership can do for you. At Hill Kelly Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Highway 29 in Car City, Pensacola. Or shop online 24/7 at hillkellydodge.com. When it comes to bottom line pricing, nobody beats a Hill Kelly deal. Nobody.
So hard to get you in the Looking for a better car buying experience? With the Step 1 Advantage from Buick GMC, Fort Walton Beach, and Pensacola, receive no-hassle market-based pricing or incentives by pre-ordering. Looking to sell or trade? Our dedicated team will even come to you. Plus, every vehicle sold at Step 1 supports local charities right in your neighborhood. Experience the Step 1 Advantage at Buick GMC, Fort Walton Beach, and Pensacola today.
Are you riding around in a filthy vehicle? Dirty car no more. Visit Ronnie's Car Wash today to get it shining in no time. They have 3 convenient locations with another coming soon. The unlimited monthly wash packages start as low as $14.95 per month with free vacuums, multi-purpose spray, and towels. Visit them in Gulf Breeze, Navarre, Fort Walton, and soon Crestview. Don't wait, wash today. Be sure to see Ronnie's Car Wash on Facebook to see the latest specials and discounts. You'll be riding and shining in no time.
Barnes Heating and Air is a proud sponsor of Alabama football, serving the entire Pensacola community for over 50 years. Barnes Heating and Air is passionate about providing customers with world-class air conditioning and heating repairs, sales, and installation. Barnes Heating and Air is family-owned, insured, and committed to quality. For a free estimate, call 478-0141. Barnes Heating and Air is #1 in customer service with service calls 7 days a week. Call Barnes Heating and Air, 478-0141, and roll